Identity. Woman, 55 plus, Swedish, Stockholm born, Christian, middle class, suburban kid. Which one of all these layers in my onion is the most important identity according to the world's current ideology of success? Which single one? My name is Helena, and as you heard, I'm a brand builder. I've been building brands with identity for a very long time. Both successful, fantastic global brands like Diesel Jeans, to Helly Hansen, to Swedish icons like Björn Borg, to local flops like Drömspelet that nobody remembers anymore. It's been an upside-going journey. It's been fun, it's paid my bills. But also as a founder of Pride, a feminist, and a board person of the Equalisters in Sweden, I have come to a very, very scary insight. No matter how clever, how insightful, how amazing our brand strategies are, that's not it. That's not at all what makes a person, an organization, or a brand shine. It takes so much more. But you can say, being mediocre, not being so successful, that's not so terrible. It just, most companies, most organizations are making some money, doing some good, at best not being harmful, neither to their people nor to their environment. But why is this? It's because the single word identity and the search for that has been fooling them, and they've been missing out. And they're sometimes scary also, because the single word identity has become such a plague in our nation and in our world. For companies, if I say search, what are you thinking about? I think that 90% would be thinking search Google. But Google is so much more, so much scarier than just search. So actually these single word identities or single-minded identities is really basically a cover-up. And we should really go for all the warning signs in the world. Because my scary insight is that single-minded identities are the cover-ups and also the cause of misunderstanding, diversion, exclusion, blame, and even conflict, and may even lead to war. This is why this fatal understanding must be erased. And the paradox is that when we're trying to do good with our companies, with our personal identity and brands, we're actually nurturing and creating hate. And that is not what we want. I come from Sweden, the country of TED star Hans Rosling, the scientist with the amazingly positive message that the world is actually getting better. And he can prove it statistically. I come from the country of retail legend Ingvar Kamprad, the founder of IKEA, who actually furnished the world. I come from the musical wonderland of ABBA, where pop groups are well-behaved and they take no drugs. I come from the country of Spotify, which actually allows us to have music everywhere but here. I come from a small city, or I come from a country in which one small city in 2007, Södertälje, actually welcomed more refugees than all of Canada and the United States in 1 year. I come also from a country with the most gender, or one of the most gender equal countries in the world. Our government actually calls themselves feminist. Sweden is one of the world's most extreme countries, believe it or not. If you go to the World Value Study, Sweden is way up at the right-hand corner, all alone in individuality and self-reliance. We used to be the happiest people on earth. We used to score extremely well on non-corruption. We used to have great trust in each other. We used to be very equal, healthy, and happy. Now the Finns are surpassing us, I understand. But something has happened in Sweden. We have, for me as a feminist, as a founder of Pride and human rights and LGBT activist, it's really scary. Because Sweden, we have lost the amazing ability of lagom. And lagom is a Swedish word that means just right. But we have lost that. And we are instead seeing a fierce battle of identity politics between, strong groups that are blaming and hating each other, and they're actually disregarding diversity, wanting to take away fair representation and the right for each person's right to be heard and seen and taken seriously. We actually are living a scary backlash in Sweden. We see this in many other countries, of course, also in the world. But I have come here to give you a warning, because I really want you not to lose what you're trying to build up here. But what has this got to do with branding, you might think, huh? Let me explain my findings. Most companies and people and organizations are at best mediocre. They do some money, they make some good. But why is this? That they do not succeed. It's because they're overcomplicating things, or not digging deep enough, or making too easy, too simplified answers. Hence, Simplexity. They're doing it, because it's really super simple or deeply complex. But most people and organizations are not digging deep enough. They're missing the nuances, the shades, all the layers of the onion, all the beauty of the broad identities. And to solve the current problems of the world that we hear so much about, from climate to social to war, we need to do better. We need to dig deeper. We need to understand identity in a much broader sense, a much deeper sense, a much more holistic sense. People, us humans, we are the same. We are much larger than just one idea. In the extreme country of Sweden, our open, individualistic, and knowledge society, the one simple identity or one single identity finally got too limiting. And nobody is just one. We can be Muslims, Arab, and even Arab Jews. And we can be business people and art lovers and human rights activists at the same time. People are both. So don't box people in. It's the same with groups. I divide you guys into the red team and the blue team, and immediately you start to find faults and difficulties, and you point fingers, and that goes on in films and in stories and in things we tell. And when the blame game is on, it's really easy to find mistakes, find things that the other team is doing well, the other sex is terrible, or the other ethnical groups. And hate starts to emerge. And we all know that when hate has started to emerge, it's really hard to reverse and go back to love, understanding, and peace. But of course, I understand, I know, it's so easy to belong. It's so easy and nice to identify with a group, to find that yes, we're close and we're cool together. All I'm saying is that when it risks excluding, that's when we need to be on alert. That's when we need to be vigilant and careful. All I'm saying is to simplify the complex in smart ways, not dumb ways. And we have so many examples around us. When the big and mighty, powerful men, it's usually men in this world, when they start to blame a group, like Trump blaming the Mexicans, or Viktor Orban blaming immigrants, or the British blaming the EU for all bad things in the world, we need to see through that, because they're trying to cover something up. They're trying to divert our attention from the real issues. And this is why you guys need, and all of us need, to listen, talk, and learn from each other. Because it starts with you. All of you have 100 million brain cells in your brains, and you can use them wisely. You can, instead of having conflict, you can try to find the commonalities, the things that bind us together. Nice words, huh? Easy to speak, easy to talk. But in real life, life isn't so easy. People are complicated, and life is a struggle, right? Let me tell you a story. about my grandmother, my mother, and me. I had been, for more than 10 years, in the lesbian closet. But I had come out. I started to embrace my identity as a gay person, and my mother has sort of come out too. She thought, though, that feminist part was worse than being a lesbian. But my grandmother, a very old, conservative lady, we thought, I was the oldest grandchild, and she loved me very dearly, and I didn't want to risk that. And we thought that she was too old and too conservative to be able to grasp the idea of her eldest grandchild being gay. So we just didn't talk, we didn't tell her. And I avoided all talk that was too personal, and you know how that becomes, you sort of divert and glide away. Then I had written an article, an activist article about being open. And I was sitting my work, and my mother all of a sudden calls me up and says, "Grandma and Grandpa are here out on the island, and I showed Grandma the article that you wrote, and I told her that you wrote it." And I said, "Oh no, she was supposed to die without knowing. What is this? What's going to happen?" And Mom says, "Grandma wants to talk to you." And I hear my old grandmother's voice, soft and nice. "Oh, my dear Helena, I love you so much. What a lovely text you wrote. You have to come to our home as fast as you can next week. I have something for you." I came to my grandmother's and grandfather's house, and my grandmother, she was a real traditional snob, born in 1910. She had this big paper bag filled with newspaper clippings, articles that she had been cutting out from newspapers, all of them positive about homosexuality. I started to look at all the articles, and I realized that my mother had been cutting out those articles from long before that I even knew myself that I was gay. My granny, she knew her little tomboy right from the start. She didn't die without knowing. She lived on for many years after that, and we became so close and so nice. And I think that she taught me one of the most important lessons in my life, that behind every person there is always so much more. And when you internalize your own phobies, that's probably the worst thing you can do. So look at the person next to you. Really look. There's so much more to the surface than what you actually see. There's so many layers to each and every one of you. So my lesson, be careful. Be smart, be wise, be thoughtful, be mindful about your identity and the identities of everyone around you. Identity can be a strong and fantastic glow, but it can also be dangerous, so be careful. My idea, worth spreading, is actually screw the idea of single-minded identities. Instead, 3 things. Embrace and identify humanity. Really see people. 2, know that we are all connected. In Swedish, it's beautiful. It's allt hänger ihop. And 3, it is actually super simple and deeply complex. Simplexity. Like the air we breathe. Invisible but necessary. And there actually are ways to see the invisible. But that's another TED Talk. Love, peace, and understanding.